last point, how to build a strong cohort and why it matters. At your tables, what I want you to come up with is 3 things. Tell me 3 things of what constitutes a strong cohort. Come up with it.
How you get there? I'd like to see you also do how you get there.
How you get there? Okay. Okay, do we have 3 things? Everybody have 3 things? Everybody's squeezing in their 3rd thing? Is that what I'm hearing? Okay, who's going to report out first? You are.
So our group came up with, our 3 things were getting people who are respectful, who work well together, and who are humble. Because we gave the example that I think some of us have had students that come in, and diversity itself can sometimes lead to making this a challenge, because sometimes you'll get students who come from institutions where they've had more experiences, and sometimes they will look down on the students who are not as experienced and treat them poorly. And so trying to find students who truly can work well together and be accepting of each other as we try to increase diversity is a challenge.
So give me those 3 again.
Respectful, works well together, and humble.
Excellent. Excellent. Okay.
What do you do from a program perspective to encourage those?
Okay.
So we presented the problem. We didn't necessarily come up with a solution, but we recognize this is something that we need to figure out, because we were just talking about, it's hard to even, you look at letters, and sometimes letters can be very telling, but even then everybody says everybody works well with others, but that doesn't necessarily mean they really do. So,
Yeah,
and sometimes
some
it's the
reference
people who
letters
are
that
the highest achieving that are the most difficult to work with others.
It's funny, for accepting students into a grad program, you see reference letters all the time, and they're like boilerplate. Oh, they're fantastic. I'm like, okay, trash. But, all right, next group. You?
Well, we have like the answers to the other table. So we talked about having group activities, both social and even like scientific at work, and having small group and large group, mixing the groups, kind of just always making sure every student's included. Let's see, what do we? Our second one was really stressing that they all live together. That really helps build and foster the relationships. And then our first one was frequent group meetings. And this is separate from social activities. This would just be group meetings about what they're
Yeah, excellent.
walking circles.
And the living together, I have had a couple students who could not live with the rest of my group because they had a family already. Some of you have probably dealt with that much more than I have. Right. So we had an idea over here that there probably several of us would like to do an optional breakout in one of the other breakouts. And so if you're interested in that, make sure to let us know, and we'll try to make sure to let Val know that we're going to do a cohort one in one of those optional. For a new breakout would be on this cohort topic, right? Because there's a lot here.
Okay.
Okay.
You guys back there? Oh, you need.
So we identified accepting of differences was a key important point. Collegiality and social interactions were the 3 that we, I think, focused on. We talked about doing field trips together. A couple people start out with field trips, which may have some science, but actually provide opportunities for the students to connect, and doing that really early in the program, like the first day almost. We talked about doing meeting faculty and scientists outside of work, so you see the group as a broader perspective, and developing relationships among the cohort, but also among the mentors. And then doing sharing activities and working together on things like MATLAB and teaching each other, so helping them get to the point where they're actually helping helping each other with their science.
Okay, So our three things were recognizing a successful cohort was that to have students that help each other, that teach each other, and these might be, you might create that by when you build your cohort, bring in a few really, really strong candidates, and then who might be rising seniors, and mix that in with lower classmen. And then also creating kind of a safe atmosphere for them to critique each other, so that by the end, they're teaching and critiquing each other, and they all feel very comfortable about that. The second thing is that they are creating these, they're helping each other, and they're going off on these spontaneous, like, helping sprees is the best way that I can describe it. So it's not forced anymore. And then finally, that they have shared and different experiences.
Thank you. So the one thing that I wanted to bring up and mention, that as we are listening to everybody's suggestions for what develops a strong cohort, understanding, like I was alluding to earlier, that I want you to think back personally when you learned something from somebody that was very different than you. Whether it was somebody from a different gender, from a different race, from a different ability, okay? Because all of our students, everybody that we meet, everybody in here has a complete different perspective on the world around them, right? All of us have something to learn from each other. And so a strong cohort is really getting your group to understand that everybody has something to share, everybody has something to learn from everybody else. And the immediate need to kind of squash any kind of first impression, we all make first impressions. Squashing those first impressions until you truly get to know somebody. How many of you have ever been, now I'm not going to ask you to raise your hand, but I want you to think about this internally. How many of you ever avoided going up and talking to someone just simply because they were different than you? All right? Let's think about last night. How many of you walked into that room with so many people that you didn't know and picked out somebody that you were comfortable talking to? Whether it's if you've ever gone up to somebody who is a wheelchair user, or if you've ever walked up and talked to somebody who was blind. How uncomfortable is that? And as a result, we develop these biases and stereotypes and assumptions for what that person can and can't do. So immediate need of talking with your group and getting them to understand acceptance and learning from each other, and doing away with these stereotypes, right? That's a strong cohort. A strong cohort is understanding that we need an inclusive community of learning to be able to be scientifically innovative, right?
I
Go
think
ahead.
we'll look for an opportunity to do an extra cohort breakout. I'll talk to Val to make sure it gets on the slides so that we know when that will be. And if you didn't notice, I decided to dress down this trip and wear a shirt from my program. And this one, you can see the cohort had this really fun, like, superhero thing that year that they were all doing. And so they actually wanted this on the front of the t-shirt, even though it made the t-shirts more expensive to do full color. We don't usually do full color. And then you'll see all these little quotes on the back that sort of became these themes all summer long. And my son and my husband are actually on there, which I had nothing to do with. They just thought it was so funny that they put them on there.
So I think this was a great conversation. To kind of wrap up that last point there of recruitment and developing a strong community through recruitment, I think one of the suggestions would be getting to know students' prior experiences with working with other people, working with people that are different than them. If you have somebody that can come up and describe a situation where they learned something transformative from someone who was different from them, that's the student you need, okay?
And any student who's one of those leaders who, in this year, Brianna was one of them that was always like, let's go to the Wichita Mountains this weekend. You know, she was always rah, rah, getting everybody to go together to do things.
Any final comments on this? You know, a lot of times when we meet and talk like this in groups, more questions come out than answers, and that's not a bad thing. You know, we've got plenty of time over the next day to be able to meet and talk and chat over lunch, during breaks, whatever. Are there any final comments out of this?
A question just about narrowing it down, because we get like over 500 applicants, and we did use GPA to knock that down this year just because it's so overwhelming. But if anyone has ideas of like a good question or two, that could be the 1 or 2 questions you read to get that down to like the 100 point, you know, to then read the rest of the application, because you just can't read all 500 applications. Little Cayman.
Yeah.
So, and I don't want to use GPA either, because I mean, my GPA was horrible as an undergrad, and I ended up.
Do you have time to look at 1 or 2 questions where they write more of a short essay, short answer?
Essay questions,
Yeah.
that would be, I mean, even when I get the 20, because I think we need to shorten our, you know, essay answers too, because I'm like trying to read the 20 that I got narrowed down for as a mentor.
One of the ones that I've really liked is, what have you done beyond the requirements of your coursework to explore whatever? And
Right, but then we're not supposed to choose someone based on their past experience, right? Like,
oh, but that's not necessarily what they'll say.
Right.
They'll say it's a physics major, and he and his dad built a weather station in their backyard.
Oh.
It's a history major. Yes, I brought a history major in. He went to Penn State. I think he's still there. Alex Kowaleski. He tracked hurricanes as a kid. And so then we're like, well, why is he a history major? Maybe he just really wanted to go to Davidson, you know? And so it's helped us see things, but I wonder if that would not work as well with minority students that are working many, many hours. So I wouldn't want that to be the only question, but it's been a really interesting one for us. So there might need to be a partner question that would...
You know, to add to that, I am running a geopath project that we saw up there, where I'm taking 2 cohorts of students, a cohort of 6 students with mobility disabilities and a cohort of 6 undergraduate, you guys can come in, a cohort of 6 undergraduate traditional students without disabilities, where we take them into the field together and they pair up and they work together on different projects. This last May I had them in Arizona. We went to the Grand Canyon, did a whole bunch of stuff. Next May we're taking them to Ireland. And we had over 200 people apply for 6 positions. And so what we narrowed it down was based on courses that they had taken. You know, one conversation came up on the soft skills and understanding the soft skills and understanding that a strong cohort can be really developed around those soft skills. Asking questions specific to what types of soft skills they have and if they can provide examples of where they've utilized those, or even narrowing it down by types of courses that they have taken, rather than looking at GPA.
Thank
Thank
you
you,
all
guys.
very much for sharing.
Thank you.